Beseder. So we are meeting once again in Mishkanot Sha'ananim, continuing our Morenu Unit 5. Morenu Unit 5 is the one that discusses the topic of doing melachot during Shmita and opening the subject more broadly. Vod melachot are asur midoraita midrabanan, and generally during Shmita the main distinction is doraita and drabanan. We said midoraita we have that's pretty much it, plus plus a question about planting. Is planting very different from the difference between planting a tree? Wonderful. I brought, you have Makorot. Wow, you even brought your own Makorot. Here I thought I'll be sitting all alone. You've really
really good job, right?
What?
Good job,
So we were saying that on the Drabanan level of Melachot, whatever is not Zri'a, Zmira, Ktsira, B'tsira, you have Charisha, it's another thing, Niti'a, right? Planting as opposed to, I was just, when you walked in, I was trying to remember, is there a different word for planting seeds as opposed to planting a tree, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, I know in Hebrew, yes, but I'm thinking in English. They're both called planting, even though they're quite different, right? So we'll talk about that more later. But that we're going to see later on. Everything that's not that is at most drabanan. Sowing the seed. Sowing. Right. Okay.
Plant like on plant, and when you do wheat, you sow the seed.
Oh, so okay, better. So we're gonna go into that distinction later on. We're gonna focus now on over here. We said that also when it comes to drabanans, anything that would be detrimental to the tree. Thank you. Anything that would end up being harmful to the tree, detrimental to the tree, can be done and should be done. And we asked, does that mean, is that within the definitions of the melachot, is that considered a melacha per definition of the melacha, right? Or is it just a matter of the usual rule that we have when it comes to drabanan, mishum pseida, exactly, mishum pseida, we're not, if it comes to significant monetary loss, it can be long-term damage. So Chazal aren't so strict about their gzerot when it comes to those kinds of drabanans. So that was our basic question. I tried to medek from the Rashi, the Rambam, the general directions. We talked about whether it's best to do as few of them as possible during Shmita. You should really do all of them before Shmita to avoid having to do them on Shmita. If you think it's a matter of heter mishum pseida, because it's a heter. If I say it's not within the definition of the melacha, so whatever, right? So I'm allowed to do things that are not the melacha, on right. We're all working during Shmita. We're just not working our fields, center, but we're all doing other work. If this is not considered the work that's a problem, so why do you have to do more of it before Shmita? Why do you have to prepare for Shmita? That's that. The interesting diuk in Tosfot, where Tosfot actually said that anything that's not good, that's not a positive good for the tree, is considered ukmei. So you're allowed to now. Why are you allowed to chop the betulat shikma in a way that won't encourage it to grow bigger and stronger? Why are you allowed to do it? Says Tosfot because of ukmei, right? Again, that was a bit of a game of the definition, because here I'm saying, I don't intend on doing a melacha for the tree. Like, why is this even an ukmei topic? This sounds like Tosfot saying, yeah, I'm putting everything that's not within the definition of the melacha together. So there's no difference between watering the plants, that otherwise the plants will die, and cutting the tree for its wood. There's no real difference. Both of them are not being done in order to help enhance the tree. That's Tosfot. Did we go to the Doraitas? I think we stopped there, right? What?
Page 9.
Page 9, correct. Page 9 in Doraitas. Oh no, did we talk about this? We finished page 9? Oh, I thought we were at page 9. Okay. Oh, so in that case, how much do we have left? Not so much. Okay. Let's go on ahead. Right. Why? So let's just review that for 1 second. Why would it be okay for the Doraitas? If I say it's not, if I say that's by or like Tosfot in that sense, if definitionally it's not a melacha as long as it's not being done to enhance the growth of the tree, so that could be true about Zmira as well, maybe about Charisha as well. That's what we finished about Charisha, right? The great Rishveger, I mean Rav Shlomo Zalman, who says that the halacha v'eser netiyot. I'll just review this because this was a nice point, and it was a bit hard to concentrate at 9:30 in the evening. It was the last thing we did. So, when it comes to iser netiyot, the Gemara said that he said the two sides here. On the one hand, the Gemara said that you're allowed to plow land that has 10 saplings, right? During Tosefet Shvi'it, mashma during Shvi'it. So plowing in order to make sure the saplings don't die is an Isur Doraita. Otherwise, I don't need Halakha L'Mashem Sinai to tell me that I'm allowed to do it to make sure the trees don't die before Shmita, right? Mashma during Shmita, it's Asur, right? So mashma that plowing just so the trees won't die is still Asur Midoraita. On the one hand. On the other hand, he asks, what does Abai really think would happen? Abai says, why are you allowed, read the Mishnah Mod Katan says, why are you allowed to water the plants during Shemitah? Because Shemitah nowadays is Drabana, right? The famous Abai, the Rebbe, the Hekesh Yovel, all that, right? Because Shemitah nowadays is Drabana. Okay, what's going to happen when Shemitah is Doraita? You're going to allow everything to die. Right, so exactly. So it must be, says Rav Shlomo Zalman, it must be Abai will also admit there's Ukmei Doraita. That's more than Ukmei that's mutter in the Melacha Doraita. Otherwise, it doesn't, it's right. I said the answer from the Sma, the Sma doesn't answer Shlomo Zalman because he was before him. But an answer I'm borrowing from the Sma is that when Shemitah is Doraita, we'll have the appropriate bracha, and then you will need to water the plants. They'll just grow. They'll all live without our help. It could be that we have a lot more heter of ukmei now that we're doing Shemitah Drabanan. Since the Shemitah is only Drabanan, we're not worthy of having the bracha, right? That the plants will take care of themselves. So that's about that. Let's move on to Ukmei Peira. Now, how would you say Ukmei Peira? Ukmei Peira is an interesting question. What do we mean when you say Ukmei Peira? Let's explain what do we mean. I have my oranges are starting to grow, and I see my assessment is that if I don't put fertilizer, the oranges are going to die. The oranges, not the tree. The oranges are going to die. Okay. Who stands to lose from that?
Oranges in a big way.
Well, the oranges. Yeah, I don't know how much oranges really care, right? They're anthropomorphizing the oranges now. But right. Oh. But right, who stands to lose? When I talk about my tree, when I talk about my bushes, right? So my bushes are going to get ruined. My tree's going to get ruined. When it comes to the 8th year, at the next cycle, I'm not going to have this tree if I let it die. But if I don't have the oranges, who stands to lose? Everybody, right? In other words, or the hefker, right? Or everybody. In other words, so if it's a heter mishum pseida, why should that even begin, right? Oh, so there's no right. The pseida of the cloud, right? That's the. Oh, so have a look. So I definitely want to start. I want to do this. I want to do it with you, from the way I wrote it. Skip over the page. Exactly because you're here. That's why I want to skip to page 11. Skip over to page 11, the Maharil Diskin. Maharil Diskin is talking about a totally different. Maharil Diskin is talking about a totally different question. He's not learning Shmita B'Shlam. So, the topic is The topic is Klalim de Dinei Drabanan. So that's his topic. He goes through a bunch of how Dinei Drabanan, the rules with which we work, Dinei Drabanan, how they work, right? Says the Maharil Diskin, בכל מקום דשרין האיסור משום פסיידה, יש לעיין. אם אין הדבר שלו כי אם הפקר, ועדיין לא זכה בו. ישרין עליה. He's asking a general question. It's nothing to do with Shmita. He's not learning Shmita b'chlal. That's not the topic of this kuntres. Okay, the topic of this kuntres is the Chazalian rules. How do they work? And he says, well, so every time Chazal say "Abeheter mishum pseida," does that apply also to things that are hefker that I want to allow to have a kinyan on later on? I just want to give you one example from a totally different sugya I was teaching this morning. A person, a person sells land and then dies. So now there's an argument whether the family says we don't want the money, we want the land, and the buyers say good luck, but if you bought the land. They argue that he was a minor, he couldn't have sold he didn't have the right to sell the land. So they say, well, dig up the grave and have a look at, right, to see shtei sarot, to see if he's a bar mitzvah or not. So, right, it's a good solution, right? Yeah. So the Gemara says no, you can't. The Gemara says forget to. And the truth is, it's probably still open because I was teaching this morning. On computer. Sorry. Yeah, Rabbi Akiva. I thought it was Rabbi Akiva. I just didn't want to get it wrong. Rabbi Akiva says, first of all, you can't. First of all, I don't know if you'll get a good enough indication. Right? I don't know if you'll get a good enough indication because it could be once he's buried. Who knows what happens? Fine. But apart from that, you don't have the right to dig up the grave to dig up a grave. Dig up a grave. Now, Tosfot say it depends who's suing. Who's suing? Who stands to lose if you don't dig up the grave? Assuming you can get a good indication. Say Tosfot, if the people who bought the land are suing to get the land, they stand to lose. So they say we put money out, we're going to lose if we don't dig up the grave. So it's his problem. We'll dig up the grave, and they're right. If you can get a good indication. If it's the family doesn't stand to lose because it's all Yerusha. Right? Yerusha didn't lose anything. So just another raya. So this kind of question, another time we'll do a shiur on when are you allowed to dig up graves and are you allowed to do autopsies. The topic was autopsies, but that's the Gemara started from. Right? Anyway, back to us. It says Maharil Diskin, when you stand to lose, who stands to lose? Right? As you're saying, Am Yisrael stand to lose in the case of Hefker, right? There's a fire on Shabbos and the Hefker field that everyone's eating off of, not Shmita, is going to be destroyed. And people are going to be hungry. And people are going to lose a significant, on Shabbos, on Shabbos, whatever. They go, can ask a goy to put it out. So no, you're right. The details have to be correct as well. Could I send a goy to put out the fire, right? Or do I say the heter of a goy is only when it's a hefset of something that I own? If I don't own it, so that's the question. Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah, we're gonna go through that. We're gonna get. Yeah, you're right. That's part of the question. You guys are always ahead of the game. So yes. בפרק כמה דמועד קטן בשביעית בכל מקום בשום פסיידה, בכל מקום, במקום שנצא לגוף הקרקעים לפרי, אשר אין לה עבודת קרקע משום פרי דלאו דילי. He says, it's obvious to me that you're allowed to do these melachot drabanan so that the fruit won't be affected, won't be lost. Who loses the fruit? People. He says, the people in the sense of hefker. In other words, right, he's treating it as hefker, but there's a potential of getting the fruit. So it's a loss in the world, right? It's a loss of an asset that the world could have gained from. That's the way he's looking at it. On the other hand, the continuation says, "Yesh lomar, דהכיוון דכתב קרא, ויוני עמך, אם כן חשיב הנפר לשייך לכלל ישראל." Right? That who owns it? The poor people, or whatever, the people who need it. They have a right to it, right? What's interesting is that to him it's very obvious that you're allowed to do the melachot rabbanan mishum pseida. No question you're allowed to do the melachot rabbanan mishum pseida. The question is only, is this, there's no question you're allowed to do the melachot for the fruit, for the fruit. Obviously that there is pseida, so he's assuming two things. Number one, that you're allowed to do the melachot rabbanan to save the fruit. Number two, saving the fruit is called mishum pseida, right? That kind of ruins what I was asking at the beginning. I want to go back. I want to backtrack, right? Because again, why did I raise this question of ukmipera? I said, if I say the issue is pseida, no one's losing anything. No one's losing anything. If I say it's not within the definition of malacha, then I can understand why you could save the fruit. Why could you save the fruit? Because that's not the malacha that's asur b'chal in Shmita, right? You're only not allowed to do malachot that are productive. This isn't a productive malacha. It's only to save the fruit, right? It's only to save something. That's not considered a malacha when it comes to Shmita. That's what I presented, right? The two options, right? The chakira, right? The chakira is it mishum pseida, or is it because it's not considered a malacha? Says Maral Diskin, you're wrong. Your question is wrong. First of all, of course you can save the fruit. First of all. Second, you think I'm saying you're allowed to save the fruit because that's not within the category of malacha? Because it's pseida. That's also obvious to me. I say, okay, so it's the pseida. He says, well, either hefker, Am Yisrael, whatever, but, right? So he destroyed the whole chakira. But let's go back to the beginning and pretend. Can I ask you something? Ask you to move here. It's good. It's good on camera. It makes it look like looking at all the hundreds of people who are. It says the Yerushalmi. I want to go back to page 10 now. So, says the Yerushalmi. Rabbi Shimon Omer, אף נוטלו את העלים מן האשכול בשביעית. Back on page 10. So, אף נוטלו את העלים מן האשכול בשביעית. מחלף השיטתי דרבי שמעון, את המן, ממרסין את האורז בשביעית, דבר רבי שמעון, אבל לא מכסחים. דקה הוא אומר אחין, שאני אוהכה שהוא כמציל מן הדלקה. Okay, what is he saying? He's saying that you're allowed to cut the leaves. You're allowed to cut the leaves off the rice. I mean, I don't really, know much about rice, but rice grows on like a I think any vine, right? It's like a vine. I think so, yeah. There's in context there. It's yeah. So yeah. No, but the important thing, the important thing, why are you allowed to take the alim from the eshkol? Because the alim are getting in the way. Sorry. No, these are two different things. It says at the beginning, you're allowed to take the leaves that are getting in the fruit's way. I think he's talking about grapes. The question is, why is it that in rice he says that you're not allowed to rip off the leaves, even though they might be getting in the way. So now he says it's different. Why? Meaning, in one case, it encourages the rice to grow, and that's why it's not allowed. In the case of the grapes, I guess, the eshkol, in the case of the grapes, having the leaves there will be detrimental to the fruit. So we see that you're not allowed to do something that will encourage the fruit to grow, but you are allowed to do something, meaning something will destroy it, and then you're allowed to save it from that. Now, over here, one of the questions is, what is it? So So what does the Yerushalmi mean? Sorafik mitzil min adlika. Right? So one way of reading it is to say mitzil min adlika is parallel to ukmei. Meaning something is going to get destroyed here. So in order to make sure it doesn't get destroyed, I'm going to say pick the leaves. Right? So you're allowed to do the melacha to save the fruit. But it could be it's not as extreme. It very well may be that the reason you're allowed to pick the leaf is only because there's a difference between, I'd say it like this, difference between, let's say the case of the oranges I mentioned before, right? Let's say I have oranges and my assessment, our professional assessment is that it needs, the tree will be fine, but the oranges need more fertilizer now. So otherwise they'll die. So what's killing the orange? Nothing, itself, right? So I'm adding something in order to help nurture it. Now it will die otherwise. If I have a tree, right? So I want to say the two different categories. For a tree, if the tree will die without fertilizer, I put fertilizer also during Shmita. If the oranges will die without fertilizer, it very well may be that I'll say you're not allowed because the oranges, they're not sustainable, fine. But if something else is harming the orange, I might be allowed to take that away. It could be there's a difference between saying I'm going to add nourishment and saying I'm going to make sure it doesn't get hurt. Those are two ways of reading the end of the Yerushalmi here. It says, you could say when I take the leaves away, all I'm doing is ukmei. Just means ukmei, and then it doesn't really matter to take the leaf away or add fertilizer. It's the same thing, right? Because in essence, what I'm doing is making sure it doesn't die. Or I say, no, mitzil dlika is more extreme than ukmei. Mitzil dlika is this leaf is in the way, I just have to get rid of the leaf and then it will be fine. I'm not adding anything to it. So? In this case, I'm not sure if it's because it's not allowing enough sun to come. So it's the opposite of dlika. There isn't the actual fire, of course. It's just the dlika in the mashal. I'm not sure if it's that it needs the sun. So I'm getting something that's shading it, getting out of the way. What? No. Dlika is not. No. Mitzil dlika is a general.
Because
it's
lean. Sometimes the opposite of.
Oh no. So I thought when we learned once upon a time we were learning Yilchot Shabbat, right? We talked about mavrech ari, right? Right. You remember we had such a concept of something is coming. Mavrech ari doesn't need to be a lion, right? Something is coming to harm it. All I'm doing is blocking the harmful thing from arriving.
The leaf, what are you blocking? What I'm saying. But see, now what I understand if you need to keep the leaf there in order to stop the sun burning that's what I would.
We have a fire here of something that's going to harm. If what?
Damage.
Something that, right? But it's the point is that it's in the way. The dlika, I'm focusing on the I'm focusing on the exact on. Yeah, but again, mitzvah dlika means a situation in which there's, again, as opposed to the oranges have their own problem. They don't have enough nutrients. The problem isn't something that's attacking them from the outside, right? Or even themselves, harming themselves. It's intrinsically, yeah, whatever, right? Bad genes. Intrinsically, right? It doesn't have enough sustenance. What the doctors here.
I think you're exactly right, but it's just a phrase.
No, I just also practically what it is. If I would have read that tomorrow.
Oh no, mitzvah dlika is no, right. No, but mitzvah dlika, it's a general. It's conceptually, it's something from the outside is. So in this actual case,
maybe it could be that just to pick the leaves off the plants.
I don't know. I'm just happy to know.
I have in my Hebrew share on Monday evenings. See, Monday evenings, I have a botanical expert. Monday evenings, I give the share in Hebrew in the frat. There I have a botanical expert, so he's always useful because these things is you have to pick it, so yeah, exactly. So I'll ask him. Remind me, I'll ask him. I've asked him questions, Even the halacha, people ask, someone asked this week, someone calls me and asks, are you allowed to put like rungs that the passion fruit will hang on to during Shmita? Now, what's the question? So I'll tell you. The question is the halachic question. I mean, versus are you allowed? It's not allowed, of course. But the underlying question is: does it encourage the growth, or does it just give it where to spread? Will it just spread in different direction? Now it's going to spread here and not there, or does it actually encourage growth? If you don't put the rungs, what'll happen? It'll just not grow as much. They won't die. It just won't grow as much, right? What?
What's the?
No, so I had to ask him because I just wasn't sure. It's not so the what? So he says he's not sure. You're wrong. Not sure. But yeah, it seems to be the latter. In which case you have to say, keep it alive for next year, and then
Now, passion fruit. Oh, is that fruit or is it?
So that's tough. Now you're asking a different question about whether you go Charila Kita.
Right, because you could.
So I'm saying the word about passion fruit. No, your goodness. Okay, like this. If you're like this, that you want it to be a fruit. That's what you're saying. Are you sure? That's what he wants. He wants it to be a fruit. No one wants it to be a fruit. I'll tell you why. Because what happens is, I'll tell you
Otherwise, you can never eat it.
no, fool. So you want it to be a vegetable. Yeah, you meant to not be a fruit. Yeah, okay. You said I see what you meant. You said the opposite. The problem with passion fruit is that it just doesn't give much fruit after the fourth year. So if it's a fruit, you get very, very little fruit out of it. Because the fifth year you're going to get meh, and it's not as good. The good fruit comes in the second and third year are great. After that, it starts dwindling.
Okay.
So most of the passion fruit you get in the market are second and third year. You see why? No, because if it's a fruit, it's orla, and you can never eat it. So good luck, right? No, if it's right, correct. If it comes to if it's a vegetable, so yes, you go chalikitato, which means everything you have. But we also want to be right now. We want to be a vegetable because I can just go to all your gardens and pick all the passion fruit I want, right? I mean, I think it's the end of the passion fruit season anyway. No, I think we're reaching the end. Like when it starts raining this week, it's going to be dead. What? It's going to start raining, they're all going to die. No, I mean, the vine will live, but it's not going to put out any fruit until next year. No, so it needs a lot of sun. Anyway, so Beseder, have a look. Sorry? Yes, we're going to get to Sfichim later on. I'll just say in one word, all the passion fruit you have was definitely planted before Shmita. If we know it was planted before Shmita, there's no Sfichim. Sfichim is only things that were planted during Shmita. Yeah, so that's all right. I tried being careful. It's a whole machloket. We're going to get to it. It's a whole machloket there. What you're saying is some of the Rishonim. We'll get to it. It's a big machloket there. B'ezrat Hashem. We have some time. Says Chazon Ish about this. Shtan Yehuha Chaduk Mitzim Nedleka. Takama Oser Falgav Deha Beira Katzala. It's a very interesting thing. It kind of throws everything out, right? He says, look, there's a machloket and a kan Rabbi Shimon. Why? Let's remember, go back to the beginning of the Yerushalmi. I cheated. I brought you Rabbi Shimon and Malv and Terutali Minesh Kol B'Shavit. Okay. What did Tanakama say that you're not allowed, right? Otherwise, it would be agreed. It wouldn't be Rabbi Shimon's opinion. It would be everyone, right? So this shows Tanakama doesn't allow. Why not? If it's all an ukmei thing, so why not? So Chazon Ish says, whatever. That's what he says, right? Nachon. I think that's a very good translation. No, right? He doesn't really mean whatever, obviously, but you see what I mean. This is fundamentally why is this also and that's mutar? Because this looks more. This is too much like an avodah, right? It looks like zomel. Let's be honest, right? It looks like zmira because what I'm doing is I'm picking the leaves in order to allow growth. So allow, not encourage. But it's zmira. It's too close, and you're only going to lose some fruit. Lo nora. right? But fundamentally, how does the Chazon Ish understand the Yerushalmi? So why does Rabbi Shimon say it's okay? Because ukme. In other words, ukme fruit is okay, right? Ukme fruit, that's what the Chazon Ish is saying. Ukme fruit is okay, except in this method, Tanakama says it's not. Then that's why he said like the different, right? He says, "What is Tanakama disagree?" Because whatever. In other words, right? Tanakama has his reason to machmer. What's Rabbi Shimon Mekel from that? I'm also learning. What's Rabbi Shimon Mekel? It's ukme of fruit. Says Rabbi Shimon. Says the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish reads Yerushalmi. Ukme of fruit is okay. So, all right. I'm going on to the Rosh Mishan. Rosh Mishan says Mishane. נטילת הלין של אשכול אינו אברוי אילנה, אלא אוקמי אילנה. כדם מצלם לדלקה, דאוקמי בעלמא. דאוקמי בעלמא, it's a mistake with the stick shouldn't be there. לגבי אורז, אברוי אילנה הוא ועשר. He just says, אוקמי not אברוי, right? Right, to Rosh Mishan, same direction, Chazon Ish, right? Ukmei not avriyah. Let's see the next Chazon Ish as well. נראה, דעד כתב רבנו הרם ותעשה ארץ מלאכה וימות כל עץ. נקרא נטיבש העץ ולא יעשה לעולם. ימות בשנה הזו ולא יבשיל פירותיו. Now, here I need to, I want to take a step back and remind us, because this is where I told you we're going to see this Chazon Ish later on. The Gemara in Moed Katan, the Mishnah in Moed Katan says you're allowed to water, you're even allowed to dig up new water troughs to allow the plants to drink during Shmita, right? So you're allowed to water during Shmita. Why are you allowed to water during Shmita? So because Shmita is Drabanan nowadays anyway. What would happen if Shmita is Doraita? It's going to be Shmita is Doraita. You won't water the plants at all. What are you going to do? Everything's going to die. Says the Chazon Ish, it must be the two levels of watering. One level keeps it alive, and the other encourages growth. And the Kamash Melan, Abaye, that you're allowed to encourage growth. Have a look at the Chazon Ish now. In the second line. I'll read from the beginning. You know that the Katav Rabbeinu Rambam, the Tesarz Melacha ve'yamut kol etz, and come the Tivash ha'etz v'lo yaseh le'olam. Ve'yamut b'shana zo v'lo yavshil pirotav. אבל אין כאן הפסד הארץ לשנה הבאה. ידע. ביי סבר תולדה דאורייתא, אם כן לא יתירו אלא בזמן הזה, בזמן שבמקדש קיים אסורה ההשקעה. אם כן בשנה השביעית ימות כל עץ בית השלכים. באי כל אילנות כבית השלכים ימותו כל עצי הארץ. אשר ינטעו אחר השביעית לא יהיה להם תירוש ויצהר עד שנה רביעית. So it gets worse. It means not only are you not going to have fruit during Shmita, you're not going to have fruit during the first, second, and third year either, right? Orla. We're back to that. So, right, that's crazy. It can't be that the trees don't survive all this, right? It can be, so you have to make sure they survive. Then he says what I mentioned earlier. Itkemu benes. That's what he's saying. We're not going to touch any of our vegetation. We'll just live. How? It's a miracle. Hashem promised the bracha. So it'll work. Says, what's the miracle that the Torah promises? Right? Says Chazon Ish, that's small beans. You want to hear a real miracle? No one's going to touch anything at all. You're not going to water, you're not going to put anything out at all, and everything will live, everything will be fine. All the fields will be just like they were before. It's a much bigger miracle. על כורחם צריך לבאר ומתירים השקעה משום הפירות. וכן מה שמבדין מרסים ולא יקסח, שהפסדו באורז, וכן מה שמבעד המתיר, רבי שמעון ליטול תעלה ומפרש בירושלים שם הפסד, והיינו הפסד הפירות. So it says Chazon Ish, when Abaye says you're allowed, Chazon Ish says there are two levels, right? Two layers, there are two levels of the heter, of watering. One heter is to make sure the plants survive. That must be even when Shmita's Doraita. When Abaye says you're allowed Shmita Drabanan, he's saying the Gemara Katan indicates you're allowed to water more fruit, also to allow growth of the fruits. That's something that Hashem promises a bracha in, to have the fruit, not that the tree will survive.
What do you mean not?
Hashem promises bracha in the fruit, but he won't keep all the fields as they are, which means you will be allowed, also in Shmita's Doraita, you'll be allowed to water the tree to make it live. What about fruit? That's up to Hashem. So, Beseder.
Where do you see this bracha? Where do we get the source that there's going to be such a bracha?
What there'll be chat get fruit
Where do you think?
with the birchati l'shlosh hashanim. Question is what does that mean? That means it's only no, because the other aspect of this is you're not allowed to touch the trees at all during Shmita, right? Okay. So what are you actually eating? Right? You're going to be eating, right? No, and Baya, the question is only
Eating from whatever is produced in the middle of street, it's after, right?
will the fruit grow if you don't water the trees at all? So the Chazon Ish's assumption based on the Gemara is that there are trees that need water, and if they only get a certain amount of water, they live, and beyond that, they'll also be able to bear fruit. They probably won't be able to bear fruit, right? If they don't have enough sustenance for themselves, right? So he says, when Abaye says during Shmita Doraita, you're not allowed to water the plants. What is he talking about? Abaye says, let's read Abaye Hafuch. Abaye is saying, it's not what he's saying, but it is what he's saying, right? When Shmita is Doraita, you're not allowed to water. So you have to explain somehow how can it be that you're not allowed to water? Right? You have to keep it sustained, right?
Yeah, it'll be either natural or unnatural. Hashem will look after it, that's basically.
No. So I'm saying there are two different things. One is keeping the trees alive. That's up to us. Encouraging the fruit's growth or the sustainability of the fruit. That's up to Hashem. But only when Shmita is Doraita. When Shmita is Drabanan, then there's a special heter to also water to such an extent that will also allow the fruit to live. So that's the Chazon Ish. Correct? Good question. Remind me to ask my to this. Right? Well, he lives around the corner from me, so ask him whenever. I send him messages too. What? Well, now we know. Everyone agrees everyone agrees you're allowed to water the trees pretty close to freely these days. No, we do hold this Chazon Ish. Nowadays, everyone's going to have Shmita's Doraita. Okay. The Gra explains differently. Have a look at the Gra. Shnot Eliyahu 11. Shanyahu shuka mitzir medleka hu shekan ino mashbiach b'shvil ze ha'ilan elo pula shelo yitkalkel. Right. Have a look at Rav Kook. לדעתי דרך אחרת בזה. כל שבשביל הפירות, אסור לעשות גם עבודות אוקמי. שפירות שנה זו, רחמנא אף קרינו. No one owns it. So what's the issue? הדעתי רבי שמעון צרת העלה מהאשכול, פירש הגר"א, שהיא פעולה שלא יתקלקל האילן. Did you notice that word? In the גר"א? מה זה שלא יתקלקל האילן? What does that mean, שלא יתקלקל האילן? The tree itself. It's not only the fruit, also the tree is in trouble. When picking the leaf, it's also for the tree. Have a look at the next Rav Kook, the next part, the next section. So this was a very big question, right? This goes back to what we were saying before. You're saying what's harming the orange? So I can have an orange, right? I can have a fruit. What's harming the fruit is itself. It doesn't have enough sustenance, right? There could be another issue where the tree moves around, right? You see this as a trogim. It's a very big issue because by trogim we really care about how perfect they are, right? That the very thorns that are on the branches themselves are scraping the etrog. Now, if you're talking about eating an etrog, no one cares because whatever, it's nothing. But if you're talking about Priyas Hadar, so that won't be Hadar, right? That's our big issue there. I'm not going to halachot there right now. I'm just saying, right? That's why there we care. What about other fruit that is more delicate, right? That if I have that the wind banging the tree, or the thorn that grew in the wrong direction for this fruit. It's a ramah to cut them off. Says, right, that would be an afkamina in our case, right? If I'm doing it for sustenance, right? So nothing will harm my fruit. Says Rav Kook, that's us. Why? שאפילו לא אומרים שמותר לעשות עבודה שהיא ליהוק מאילנה אפילו בגוף האילן, זהו דווקא להעמיד את האילן שיהיה ראוי לעבודתו לאחר שמיטה. Again, why? It's well, you could say it's a hefsed thing, because I won't be able to have this tree after Shmita if I don't take care of it now. עבודה שהיא לצורך הפירות, לעולם אסורה, שמשהו לצורך הפירות הפקיע תורה, ושהפקיע את פירות שביעית לכל, וסילקה יד בעלים מהם. It's not yours, so no one is losing out. אפילו כשהם אבודים, אסור לעשות עבודה בשבילם. So no one stands to lose from not sustaining this fruit, because no one owns it. So I pointed out this now. What so? Because what is Rav Kook assuming? That the issue is pseida, right? We're matir mishum pseida, and here there's no pseida because we can't recognize who's the mafsid, right? If no one stands to lose, mimela, you can't say, well, there's a great monetary loss. Whose? Show me the person who is standing to sue the loss, and then we can discuss whether you're allowed to do this melacha. But there is no one stands to lose, so mimela. So mimela it's us. Now I pointed out Maharil Diskin accepts the Rav Kook's assumption, right? Maharil Diskin, it's interesting about him. He accepts Rav Kook's assumption that the issue is pseida. He just says, first of all, who told you that pseida of no one is not a pseida? Second, who said that Shmita is no one's pseida? It's the anim's pseida, v'namcha, right? Who says that you could recognize someone who's mafsid, the pseida. That's weird. That's my other daughter. Because I said I need to. My one daughter is in town. I'm supposed to pick up right after Shiur. I told her not to call before 9:30. Okay, but that was my other daughter calling, so that's strange. I told her to call not before 9:30 as well. If it's urgent, I'm sure she'll. What? If it's urgent, she'll call again and say, actually, this isn't. Beseder.
To really understand hefker differently. Hefker is no one or everyone.
You're asking about what is hefker? It could be that van der Reita. There's that van der Reita. Famous what? You know what I'm talking about? I'm impressed. What? Oh, so the Sefer. A book called Atvan Doraita, Otiyot Torah. Otiyot Torah in Aramaic, that's Atvan Doraita, written by no. No. It's not Rav Zevin, it's Rav Yosef.
Yeah.
Engel, thank you. Mari Engel. Yeah, Rav Yosef Engel. Rav Yosef Engel, he gives you great angle. Huh? Anyway, it's Yesodot of Lomdus. So he asks, what is hefker? Is hefker owned by everyone or by no one? He has a whole hakir there. He talks about mona kehuna when it comes to Trumot Masrot, and it comes to a whole bunch of things. So he says hekdesh. He wants to propose that hekdesh is the way he proposes. Hefker means we all own it, and hekdesh means no one owns it. If no one owns it, mimele, it goes back to Hashem. So he has a whole. He proposes different ways, and he shows some rishonim from Rishon. So great stuff. So it could be right. Again, he's basing more on the psukim in the end, right? Psukim specifically regarding Shmita. All right. So let's have a look at the later poskim, says Rav Shul Israeli on page 12. נקודות שמותרות עבודות רבנן עבור פירות ההפקר, כמו שנקודת פשיטות מאריאל דיסקין וקונטרס האחרון, אין זה אלא עבור פירות שישנם כבר בעולם, ולא עבור מה שאינו עדיין בעולם. מדמילתא, שאף על פי שמתירים עבור פירות הפקר, מצד שפירות שביעית שייכים לכלל ישראל, כמו שהביא שם לדייק. על כן הרי זה כמו הפסד של מה ששייך לבעלים, אבל מה שלא בא לעולם. אין זה אלא הרווחה. לפי זה נראה בירקות שנלקט מהם היבול הראשון, אלא שעל ידי גזימה וזיבול יכול להניב שנית, מלאכות אלו ברבנן לא הותרו, כי לא עוד איננו, ולא שייך להתיר מצד פלט הפנים, meaning, fundamentally he goes more with Maharil Diskin, right? Or he says, what he's saying is therefore, even Maharil Diskin would agree that you're not to encourage growth of new fruit because of the Seder of Am Yisrael. Say, I'm only doing a drabanan. If I don't do it, there'll be fewer fruit and vegetable in the market, right? He says, yeah, but again, now you're encouraging new growth. Maharil Diskin didn't mean you're allowed to do drabanan things to encourage new growth. He meant you're allowed to do what we traditionally call ukme. What's interesting about this is that we're kind of mixing the two, right? In other words, Maharil Diskin says, why are you allowed to do it? Mishum pseida, right? So I say, wait, what about great monetary market loss, right? Significant monetary market loss. He says, oh, that's also significant. Yeah, you can do it, right? Now, says not both, sorry, says Rav Shul Israeli, but you see that fundamentally it is melacha, right? So I'm only going to allow it if the fruit is already there, because you could have taken Maharil Diskin further. I said pseida is pseida, so right, so do it whenever, right? Kamash Mala, no, you have to do it to save the monetary loss that already exists, right? Seder. Let's have a look at Rav Tukuchinsky, who of course sounds more like Chazon Ish. שהדברים מחוכמים וראויים למי שאמרם, נראה לי לדעתי כמעט ברור שמותרת עבודה לאוקמי אף בשביל הפירות. כמה הוכחות? אחד בעבודה זרה אמרו בטעם אין צריכים פגים בשביעית שלא פתו מפירה. pointing out, פתו מפירות, פתו מפירה. Right? פתו מפירה means to encourage growth of better fruit. What about just to sustain the fruit? That should be okay. Now, which is just like ukme, right? Back to Chazon Ish. So, right. Before I have sorry. Let's sum up the main shitot here. Some of the main shitot, and then I want to finish up with the next before Tukuchinsky. Right, so we said like this. The basic question was, when I say ukme pera, when I say ukme at all, is ukme mean I'm worried about monetary loss, or is the issue monetary loss, or is the issue sorry, distracted there for a second. When I say I'm allowing ukme, is it not within the definition of melacha, or is it a monetary loss thing? If it's not within the definition of melacha, so it doesn't matter what I'm trying to make not lose, because it's not within the definition of melacha. So even fruit that no one owns should be allowed. But if I say that if it's a matter of monetary loss, so it depends on whether it's monetary loss. Now we see the Chazon Ish and Rosh Mishans, right? They say these are all these things for fruit is all ukme, meaning all you're doing is saving something. It's also, if you read the Yerushalmi like that, that's the pshat of the Yerushalmi as well, right? The lashon of the Yerushalmi is, right, if I understand that the Yerushalmi is saying ukme, it's saying in order to sustain the fruit, you're allowed to do melachot. That's on the one side. On the other side, it says the grass, something very surprising. The grass says no, there's also hatzalat the itself. You're also saving the tree itself. Why? Why say that you're also saving the tree itself? So you say you're saving the fruit. Because if it was only for the fruit, I wouldn't say, oh, to save your life. And that's what the Rav Kook goes with. Maharil Diskin turned everything, the whole Chakir on its head and said, told you that there's no din of hefsed. Just because no one owns it doesn't mean there's no monetary loss, right? Says Rav Shul Israeli, fine. Fair enough, but bear in mind, it's only if I could already recognize something that's going to get harmed that already exists. I'm not going to say the market generally, the poor people are going to lose if I don't encourage new growth of new vegetables. That I'm not going to do. Rav Tikuchinsky ends up with saying that it's clear to him from all these rayot that you are allowed to do ukme for fruit, right? I want to remind us just for the punchline here with Rav Tikuchinsky. In the last line, there's Rav Tikuchinsky says, okay, the Ritva says what I said several times, lo chashiva avodah, it's not within the definition, not within the realm of avodot. So, ukmei is just not within the realm of avodot. Sorry? No, it's the same Ritva. I just want to quote it here again, so I would have to skip over, that's all. Said Tikuchinsky, okay, so what's the difference? There's a nice with Tikuchinsky is fundamental to what we're learning, so you might want to stay awake for this. Tikuchinsky. כל אילן וצמח, מאז שהתקללה הארץ וקוץ ודרדרת הצמיח, דרכו ללקוט בעיפולים ותסבוכות טבעיים, הם בקוצים, הם בתולעים, באבנים, השמש, הגשם, הרוח, הברד, שיקרם להצמיח, ושמקים אותם לפרקים. כל אלו הדברים מטבע הצמיחה, אם בא להסירם על ידי עבודה בשביעית, הרי זה לעברויה. היינו להשבוכם מכל שאר אילן וצמחים. אבל כל הסרת נזק בלתי מצוי ורגיל, זהו אוקמי. Now, why is he doing this? Because he wants to say the fundamental understanding, right? And say that it's not considered an avodah. What is not considered avodah? Now, he's also using, I think he's also alluding to Latzir min adlika, the Yerushalmi, right? Anything that's like Latzir min adlika is allowed. Okay, but hold on, define Latzir min adlika. What is adlika? What is not adlika? Once I go there, I could say I could fit many different things in that. So you want to say it depends on whether it's the natural within natural growth or not. Now the example I gave, I thought it was a better example. Now it's not enough, but it's easier to understand. It's easier to understand my example, right? If the orange tree doesn't have enough nutrients to sustain the oranges will fall and die, right? Now, but that's a natural thing because either it has the sustenance or it doesn't, right? It's not that something showed up and I'm saving it from something something from the outside, right? Okay, but the question is, how far do you go with that? What about rain? Is rain? Let's say there's too much rain. Hail. Okay, let's say hail. So, and it's not good for the fruit. Okay, so what is that? You see what I'm asking? I'm not allowed to say from the hail. Whatever, I'm saying to put a roof over, so it's not really, I'm not really doing anything beside it. But my point is that it's not so clear to me, it's not so obvious to me what I'd fit into, which I'd categorize as the natural process of the tree that I'm not allowed to deal with, and the outer elements. I'm just not sure. It doesn't seem so obvious to me. Why? What case? What would be if I need to water more because there's more sun, but we are allowed to water, right? We say ezukme, right? The dryness, we've had terrible dryness last few days, right? This whole week was incredibly dry. I know you guys have been drinking like Michigan. I must have been drinking like, my kids, oh my gosh, their faces are terrible. Oh my goodness, yeah. What? It's terribly dry. This whole week has been very, very dry, right? Apropos, terribly dry. Yeah. Mamash. Now you have to, so presumably I assume that this, Don't worry. Comes Shabbos, the kids are coming for the bris, just you wait. We have, so I'm assuming this week plants need more water. is the dryness an outer element because it's a new situation that's not part of the natural, what normally happens in the country, or what? No, you see my problem. You see my problem. All right, let's do we stop or do we try to quickly do Yofi? All right, let's try to quickly do one. Yeah, you say stop. All right. Yeah, that's right. Okay.